Welcome to the next episode of the Bald Avenger Show, y'all. I am Jason Cisneros, also known as the Bald Avenger, the purveyor of all things common sense, the tattooed guru, the king of the Misfit Nation, and a legend in my own damn mind, if you don't mind me saying so myself. Welcome to the next episode of the Bald Avenger. This is Just Jason Mondays, where I just get to chat. I think about something comes up during the course of my week, and I just start to obsess about it, and then I study and I dive in, and I do my best to make it interesting for all of us to have something to talk about, something that adds value, something that we can talk about, something that we can apply to our own lives, something that we can that adds value, right? I mean, that's what this whole entire scenario is about. This is what Misfit Nation's all about. It's about adding value. It's about taking our game to the next level. It's about not tearing other people down. We don't need to tear other people down. There's been a lot of that I watch going on, and it comes in, and it shows itself in so many ways, right? A lot of it's passive aggressive tendencies where, you know, it's not enough for us just to say to ourselves, you know what? I did this or I did that, and I did it with the best of my abilities, right? We start to throw around words, different words like, that set us apart or set us above. And like my integrity is bigger than your integrity, or I have, more moral standing than so-and-so, and blah, blah, blah. And it starts to come out, which is fine. Look, everybody is doing life. I would just want to start this out tonight because it's massively important for me to make this point, because there's a lot of misunderstanding that happens out in the world. And a lot of it comes, frankly, because I run my mouth so often on so many different subjects that sometimes it can be taken out of context. I do a lot of work to make sure that context is always able to be provided. It's called evidence, right? It's called making an argument that is solid and not based in emotion. I can be passionate, but not based in emotion, and doing our best to put data around it so that we're not ever attacking a person. We're always attacking problems. That is a premise of mine. It's a premise of my company. We teach it. We embody it in our businesses. We embody it, that one principle where we attack problems, never people, everywhere that we possibly can. But it's difficult sometimes when we try to set ourselves up as moral authorities, which is our first biggest mistake, right? Because once we set ourselves up as a moral authority, or we put ourselves in a position of better than anyone else, our own ability to see ourselves is greatly diminished, right? It's greatly diminished. We're not able to see our own blind spots, which is frankly really the only thing that I value one of the things that I value most about being human is the ability to be able to look at myself through a critical lens and to see where, and just to test the different ideas that I have or the thoughts that I have in making sure against a principle that I do not want to add suffering. I want to ease suffering. And so it gives me an ability to be able to run my filters through what am I, if what I'm saying is causing damage to someone else, why, right? That's never my intent. And my intent is never to hurt anybody else. It's never to judge another person's journey. It's never to put myself above or better than anyone else. That's the beginning of a fall for anyone, right? If you go back through history, it's the beginning of the fall for nations. It's the beginning of the fall for empires. It's the beginning of falls for families. It's the beginning of the fall for individuals. Is that losing that ability to see yourself just like other people, or that you're not better than. Let's just kind of stick it. Let's kind of stick with that principle right there, is that we don't ever want to think of ourselves as better than. And so what we tend to do, I'm a big studier of history and philosophy, both old, modern, looking forward to where we're going, because our past is a good predictor, right? If you look at or follow history in any way, shape, or form, you can see some patterns that show up, and they tend to show up when this pattern that is starting to show its head right now is that my truth is the only truth, and when basic principles and philosophies that have guided human nature and keeping us together, and laws and belief systems, like, it starts to splinter up. You see it in the fall of prior to the fall of any nation, any great empire. All you have to do is read books, right? And that's sort of where I came to tonight. It's like, look, I don't mind. I mean, look, I'm quite often wrong. You all will hear me say the things that I'll come on and correct myself, or update my belief system or whatever it is, because I never want to be standing in ignorance, right? Standing in ignorance. I never wanted to. I don't want to get caught up in a place of defending an idea that I had yesterday just because it was my idea, right? That is ignorance. It is the antithesis of why God or the universe or evolution gave us a prefrontal cortex, y'all. It's the thing that gives us the ability to hold two different ideas in our minds at one time and compare them against each other, right? To compare them against each other, rather than in order for me to be right, I must make someone else wrong. I fucking hate that theory. I hate that theory that just for me to be right, I have to destroy, tear down, create doubt in other people for myself to feel good about me, right? I don't like that way of thinking. I don't like the people that employ those tactics. It is very, very disappointing to me that we can't see, that we can't open our eyes, that we as human beings, no matter what situation we find ourselves in, cannot stop our mouths from running to tear someone else down, right? Now look, I have those of you that are new to the show, welcome. Thank you for being here. And the idea is that if your actions, right, a thought process or what you say, things that come out of your mouth, they don't cause any damage. I mean, words, they can hurt your feelings. I get it. But, again, I go back to almost every single time I do a podcast or I do a show, I come back to Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, right? By Viktor Frankl, who was in an internment camp in Nazi Germany and was able to utilize his mind to say, I am more free than my captors. And so that was being tortured. That was being starved. That was being ripped away from everything that he knew. That was being that was being driven into, like, you're an animal, and these other superior race, they're going to kill you. They're in total control of your life. And yet he was able to control his mind to be able to say to himself, I am more free than my captors, right? And ever since I heard that, ever since that permeated me, I read that sentence 50 times in the first setting, right? In the first setting, I read that 50 times over and over and over again. I get goosebumps still to this day thinking about it, that this guy was in the worst. He was ripped out because of what he believed, because of his Jewish lineage. He was ripped out of his home, away from his family. He was stuck into a camp because he was supposedly a lesser race. He was surrounded by people that were dying, that were being thrown in ovens, that were being starved to death, that had the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst experience that I can possibly imagine being inflicted on another human being, regardless of, and the things that they write about, that you hear about, they're doing, ripping fingernails off. I mean, the worst. And yet this man had it inside of him to say, I am more free than my captors. And how I will get through this is by imagining a better future, that all of this suffering is on purpose, that all of these things that I'm going through right now I'm going to live through this so that I can write this down so that it never happens again, so that I can tell the story, so that I can educate. He gave his suffering meaning, and in so doing became more free than his captors. Right? And I'm sticking on this just for a little bit because we live in a world, a day and age right now where, the average American lives better than 90% of the rest of the world. And they have jobs. We have jobs. We have flat screen TVs. We have air conditioning, and air conditioning. Just go back historically and find out and think about how important having air conditioning is, and having a refrigerator, and having a refrigerator that's got food in it, right? There's so many people that are running around that have really no problems. It may not be ideal. I get it. Your life may not be ideal. But could it be worse, right? Usually the answer to that question is yes. And secondly, is if we applied ourselves to learning and educating ourselves and improving our thought processes and our ability to be able to process thinking and ideas, holding one or two or three or four ideas in your mind at the same time, comparing them against each other, not having to tear someone else down, right? I think it's the weakest, if I look back through history, if I was to form an opinion, if somebody was to come to me from some other planet and say, Jason, what do you think the weakest human trait is? It is the trait of having to tear someone else down so that you can feel better about yourself, right? Shitting on someone else to make yourself smell better, as my grandfather used to say. It's not a very clean example, but it makes a point, right? It's provocative. Nobody knows what it means. But if you think about that, it's one of the weakest traits that we have. And it's self-defense when you're not thinking for yourself, when you are not engaged in taking on the world, when you're not engaged in challenging yourself, if you're engaged in anything other than looking in the mirror, learning, educating, trying something new, taking actions, and shifting that power, and really working on fixing and improving on your weaknesses and strengthening your strengths, then you tend to weave and go into these other areas, right? Where you're spending a lot of time having to feel better about yourself by tearing someone else down. I tell people all the time, look, I will state my position very clearly. Those of you that know me, I will state my position very clearly. There are plenty of people who disagree with me, probably rightfully so. I happen to be at this level of my development. I happen to be at this level. I mean, I could go back 15, 20 years and line out, which I have done in other podcasts, the things that I'm embarrassed that I thought, the things that I'm embarrassed that I did, the things that I'm embarrassed about who I was and how I treated people. But I'm not that person anymore. There's no cell in my body that exists that is no part of me that exists, or any part of you that exists that hasn't been shed throughout the last 10 years of your life. Not one cell of your body. So when they say, I knew you 10 years ago, you knew a group of cells that isn't me anymore. You knew a group of thought processes that isn't me anymore. And if you still believe the same way that you did 10 years ago, shame on you. This thing is a gift. This thing is a gift for us. It's a gift for us to be able to improve our lives, even if it's ever so incremental progress wise and small little tiny step forward. Just today, I decided that I wasn't going to drink. I didn't go to McDonald's, that I was going to have a salad, that I was going to say hi and I love you instead of I fucking hate you, right? It's those little incremental things that separate us from the rest of the animal kingdom. And yet here we are, a lot of us just acting like animals, acting like when somebody disagrees with you or somebody takes a different approach than you, that they are automatically wrong or evil. That is so stupid of us to think that way, to say that somebody could, I'm going to use a really controversial thing right now, misgender somebody, right? Where I look at somebody and I go, hey, that looks like a guy. And I say, hello, sir, right? And then you can actually like go to jail for that kind of shit these days. And to me, there's male and female, there's gay and lesbian, there's all these things, and I don't judge. Like, however they live their lives, that's fine by me. I don't love anybody less because of how they view themselves and what they want, how they view their identity. I have zero bad feelings in my heart for anyone that wants to call themselves anything that they want to do. Right? But at the end of the day, I don't have to live by your rules. I don't have to live by your rules. Just like you don't have to worry about how I feel about things. I don't have to worry about how you feel about things. Mistreatment of somebody because of who they are is always wrong. It's always wrong. Mistreatment of somebody that you want to have power over, or that you want to have influence over, or that you want to control is always wrong. But don't force that shit on me. I don't have to believe the way that you believe. It doesn't make you any less of a person. It doesn't make me any less of a person. We live in a day and age, and it will pass, y'all. It will pass. This PC culture where you have to say the right words. I watched on my Twitter account the other day, I watched this guy who was there was an interview that was going on, and I'm going to get into my subject, but I'm setting the table for the subject that I wanted to talk about tonight. And I'm watching this, it was 4 people in a row, and they were all discussing something. It was on a radio station, and obviously you could see them. And the guy on the end says, that woman or that man or whatever it was, and the guy on the other end, and it's always a sanctimonious asshole that nobody likes. Think about it this way. It's always a sanctimonious asshole that nobody likes and nobody wants to be around, and they're always massively miserable. They're the ones that know all the rules to the LGBTQ, like all of the letters. They're the ones that know all the rules to the PC rules as of that particular moment and that particular update. And they're the first ones to correct the next update of how all of us are supposed to believe. We don't have to believe that way. I'm sorry. You do what you do you. Here's the rule of my universe in my life is you do you. And if anybody abuses you for doing you, as long as you're not harming other people, then you have an advocate over here, right? You have an advocate in Misfit Nation. If you're doing you and you're not harming anyone else, and you're doing your best to ease suffering, and you're doing your best, if nothing else, but to take responsibility for your own stuff, you have a home in the Misfit Nation. You have warriors in the Misfit Nation that will stand up for you, right? But you also have people in the Misfit Nation. Don't come in here and tell me how to think. Don't come in here and tell me that when you dig up somebody that's, I heard this, I don't know who to accredit it to, so I'm going to Jay Shetty the shit out of it right now, is when someone digs up a bones and they discover a burial site somewhere, they identify the bones as male and female. Okay. That I'm not smart enough to keep up with all the other stuff. I'm not. And it doesn't make me misogynistic or patriarchal or racist or homophobic, or, it doesn't make me any of those things to not want to play those rules. I don't have to, because guess what? No matter what you have between your legs, no matter how you decide to identify, no matter how you decide to what you decide to call yourself, or what you were born, or what's inside of you, or what you identify as, no matter what, I'm going to treat you with love and kindness and understanding. And if you need help, I'll be there to help you. And if you're causing suffering, or you're increasing suffering in the world, I will be opposed to you. And that doesn't have anything to do with your color or your sex or your identification or whatever it is. And I believe in my heart of hearts, y'all, that is most human beings. Most human beings believe that way. But somewhere along the way, somebody's opinion about how they were offended and how we feel, all of we just allowed it to be to start to permeate our society. We're just like, that's okay. You know what? You're right. You're right. I should memorize 72 new genders because Lord knows, I really, really do not want to offend somebody. Oh my God. Think about this. The biggest learnings that I've ever gotten in my life, the biggest advancements that I've ever made, the greatest friendships I've ever had was when somebody offended the shit out of me, because guess what? It was testing my belief system. And 9 times out of 10, when I was offended, I was wrong. I want to say that again. 9 times out of 10, when I was offended, I was wrong. And because it's hard to have your beliefs challenged, it's hard to look in the mirror. And I do that all the best that I can all the time, right? It's hard to make an enemy of me. Here's how you do it. You attack my friends. You attack my family. You because of your small little tender little feelings, decide that you're going to put yourself up here, and in order to do so, you're going to step on the backs and the shoulders of people I love and respect and care about. Not going to happen. You could pick on me all you want. I'm a big boy. I can take it all day long and twice on Sunday. You don't mess with my Christopher. You don't mess with my Sandy. You don't mess with my M. You don't mess with Anita. You don't mess with the people that have shown to me who they are in their spirits. You don't mess with them, because now we got a problem, right? So, and Tamra, you try messing with these people. You'll find an enemy. Otherwise, I am going to love you based on our interaction. I can overlook so many things. So can you, right? This isn't just a statement about me, but we as human beings overlook things all the time. But when you have to put yourself above someone else, nope. No. So how do we avoid that, right? Because we've all done that, right? We've all done that. Exactly, Rayanne. You know, I just about ripped somebody's head off of their shoulders because of her. Because you don't mess with Rayanne. Why would you? Right? Why would you? It doesn't make any sense. If you anyway, I don't want to go too far down that because this isn't a negative thing. It's just something that shows up consistently. And for us to look at our own behavior and for us to separate ourselves from those that are demonstrating that, because it's holding us back. And Misfit Nation is all about acceleration. It's all about incremental progress. It's all about facing ourselves down in the mirror so that we can have a bigger impact on society, so that we can enjoy ourselves while we're doing it, so that we can look at our life and go, we need to make more money so that we can have more impact, right? We need to be able to control our thoughts and to be able to have new thoughts that are supportive of the outcomes that we want to reach. We need to be able to sustain better relationships with people who love us instead of constantly trying to please people who never will, right? We need to be really accelerating and focusing in on our health, making sure that in our entire body, that we're in the ideal state that we can possibly be with at the highest levels of energy to be able to overcome the resistance of people that are pushing back against the ideas of us loving each other, right? So on that, I just want to give a little bit of a historical viewpoint of how far back this stuff all goes. And it goes back to the beginning of time, really, right? It goes back to the beginning of recorded history. And, you know, there's different schools of thought, right? There's different schools of thought. And I just came up with a few that I wanted to point out. Okay. I'm just going to run through some of them and then we'll come back because there's a few of them that are important. But these are schools of thought. Now this goes back to, to Jason Young's on here. He's an Athenian, historical guy. I know he was making jokes about it earlier, but a lot of thinking came from India, from the Greeks, from those early societies, because they started to think about things, right? And even back then, you had people that were warring, right? I'm going to just come up with 10. Like, here's 10 schools of thoughts. Existentialism, okay? The individual is solely responsible for giving his or her own life meaning and living that life passionately and sincerely. Idealism. We're going to come back to 2 of these here in just a second, because or 3 of them actually. Idealism is experience ultimately based on mental activity. Realism exists independently of the observer. It's what the world that you interact with. Empiricism, knowledge arises from evidence gathered via sensory experience. Deism, reason and observation of the natural world without the need for organized religion. Can determine that a supreme being created the universe. Okay, this deity does not intervene in human affairs or suspend the natural laws of the universe. Humanism. Humans can lead happy and functional lives and are capable of being ethical and moral without religion or dogma. Life stance emphasizes the unique responsibility facing humanity and the ethical consequences of human decisions. Dualism. Mind and matter are fundamentally distinct kinds of substance. Human beings have both of them, mind or soul or body. Moral dualism is the belief of a greater complement or conflict between good and evil. Hedonism. Hedonism, pleasure is the only intrinsic good. This one and I have a pretty decent relationship. Hedonism, absolutism, right? And absolute truth is always correct under any condition. Do you know anybody like that? An entity's ability to discern these things is irrelevant to the state of truth. Universal facts can be discovered. Relativism, points of view that have absolute truth or validity, having only relative subjective value according to differences in perception and consideration. Free will. Agents have the ability to make choices. Individuals can be held morally accountable for their actions. Determinism. Events within a given paradigm are bound by causality. Nihilism. Life is without objective meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value. Morality does not exist, and any established moral values are abstractly contrived. Knowledge is not possible, and some aspects of reality do not even exist as we say them. So there's like, I don't know how many, what that was, 12, 11, whatever, 10 different ways of thinking, right? And then you go back through how long ago or how long that we've been having these conversations, right? How long have we been having these conversations? You had Plato, you had had all these things lined up. Machiavelli, right, was a huge realism guy, but he got his ideas from Thucydides, right, who was also an Athenian. So there, it goes back, and these people have been having exactly, Amy. There's so many isms. There's so many isms. And the cool thing that I love about the old philosophers was that they tested their theories. They argued them out, right? They had conversations with other philosophers. They banged heads against ideas. They had deep thought processes. They were in a place where gaining knowledge and then being able to record it so that other people could advance, because I think they knew at the heart, if you study philosophy, if you study these philosophers, their idea was that knowledge is a building block, and that throughout the time in history, that intelligence and intellect will always improve for the purposes of easing suffering for the world around them. That's what I believe that That's what I believe that they believed. And so they recorded this stuff and they fought it out, and they didn't kill each other over these ideas. They didn't try to destroy the other person because of these ideas, but they fought them out, right? They fought out the actual with the idea, and they didn't bring into it they didn't bring into it someone's character to destroy them. They were having discussions, and I'm sure it happened, because human nature is human nature. There's always that person in the audience, and or that just is in it to be a contrarian, right? Which is contrarianism. It's an ism. So exactly, Kimberly says that they broke bread, they sat down, they had meals, they drank their wine, and they threw things at each other, and they argued it out. And for all of that argument and all of their energy and all of their commitment to knowledge and to progressing knowledge for knowledge's sake, we have buildings, we have waterways, we have vehicles, we have constitutions, we have organized societies, we've had long stretches of peace, we've been able to take the medical world and cure things that used to destroy and wipe out entire civilizations. We're so much better off, y'all, because of the lessons and the ability for human beings to fight out ideas without bullets, right? To fight out ideas and to love the other person and to really listen. In order to have an intellectual and an intelligent argument, you have to not only state your position emphatically, you have to then turn around and listen to the argument. And true intelligence is being open to the idea, looking for that gap where your belief has a hole in it that argument is going to strengthen, and to be able to change your mind and advance your thought processes for the purpose of changing your behavior and gaining a new set of outcomes. How sad is it for you to look around you and look at the people that for years and years and years and years hold themselves to a way of thinking, and you can objectively look at their life and go, they're sad, they're lonely, they're angry, they drink to overcome. They can't wait to get to the end of the day to throw down some booze to cover over the pain in their soul. Their relationships are very short, or the ones that they do have end up being tenuous. None of their projects ever really go through to fruition, which makes them even more angry. And it's because somewhere along the line, and I'm so grateful to the mentors in my life that taught me this, that taught me the idea, and my grandfather for one, right? My grandfather for one, Jason, never believe your own press. What a great piece of advice. And I never knew, you got to think that I was dealing drugs and collecting money and all the stuff when my grandfather was dispensing to me. I was on the run or trying to get away from the law, or I'd show up at my grandparents' house. They'd ask me what the hell I was doing, or what I had done. Or they were kidnapping me away from my adopted father and taking me away to a lake somewhere to get me away because my face was all bruised up or whatever it was. And he would just talk to me. And he would have conversations much like we're having right now with a kid that had no idea what the hell he was saying. The wisdom of my grandfather and the things that he says, the things that I wake up in the middle of the night and I go, oh my God, that's what my grandpa meant. It's so powerful that my grandfather was basically saying when he said, Jason, don't believe your own press. And that means that whenever you're doing well in life, don't believe all the ass kissers that are around you telling you how great you are. I had that happen to me. And then when you hit rock bottom, which did happen to me, I went back to some of those same ass kissers and basically begged for $10 because I hadn't eaten in a couple of days so that I could go get a burrito, and none of them had any time for me. They were living in houses that I helped them pay for, that they were driving cars that I helped them finance. They had stuff because of the business that I had that I lost. They went and got another job and I went fucking bankrupt, which was miserable. It was crushing, but thank God it happened. But he was telling me in his own way, Jason, beware the people that flatter you too much. And even if they do, even if you do deserve it for some of the stuff that you do, even if you do believe it for some of the stuff that you do, there's still an ability for you to fuck it up. Right. And then also on the bad side, when you've got the people attacking you like Kavanaugh right now. Think about this. Like, I don't care what side of the aisle that you're on. What's going on with Kavanaugh is total and utter bullshit. Some guy has a memory of a party of something that happened 30 years ago, and they report it as if it's true. And they track down the woman, and she says, I have no idea what you're talking about. Right? I don't remember that. But it's all, and immediately you have Kamala Harris and you have all these other idiots that jump on saying he needs to be impeached, right? Think about that just for a second. If somebody can make up something about you from 30 years ago and put that out into the public domain as if it's true, not even a person that you supposedly wronged, but somebody who saw you supposedly wrong somebody. How far are you going to get in your objectives? How many things are you going to achieve if that's the standard by which we're going to lower ourselves so that we can destroy our political or philosophical people that are on the other side of those arguments? How far are you going to be able to get? How far am I going to be able to get? How far is society going to be able to get? I'll tell you how far it's going to get. Not very far. We're going to end up hating each other, killing each other, fighting each other. And then what's going to happen is a dictatorial government will step in and throw on something like communism or socialism because we're too stupid to manage ourselves and our own affairs, that we need an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-wise government to be able to think for us. You don't believe me? Read history, y'all. Read history. Look at Venezuela, who was the number 3 economy in the world 20 to 30 years ago, to us and to Japan, I believe, at the time. That's what happens. And people drive us there on purpose, like we're puppets. That's why I have this show, you guys. That's why I'm talking to you, so we can understand, man. We can disagree. We can argue things out. We should do that. But we should never hate each other because of it. We should understand how to trade ideas. We should never position ourselves above someone else. We should never accept that we're below someone else. We are equal. All of us created equal. What separates us is how we use the 24 hours that we have. What separates us is our ability to be able to apply intellect. What separates us is the results that we get from our activities and our ability to bounce them off of each other. Okay. So back to what I was talking about, I wanted to dive a little bit into a couple of these isms, right? Exactly. John Duffy, respect. And there's a guy, John Duffy, who traveled the entire spectrum from the as far left as you could possibly get to as far right as you can possibly get. So far that they touched each other, I think. And he was able to change his intellect along the way. Right? He was able to change his intellect, his positioning, his thought processes, how he applied himself to the world. And what has appeared now, I mean, I'm sure he was always a beautiful human being, but that man loves deeper and harder than anybody that I've met. He's loyal. He doesn't judge anyone. You know, he just loves. And at the core of what I believe is going to change this world is us understanding that love is not a dainty emotion. It's not an emotion that is like, oh, I love you. You know, love is tough. Love is strong. Love is there's so much to it that demands the better angels that are inside of you. Hate is easy. Hate is stupid. Hate is intellectually dishonest. Honor your journey. Honor who you are. Constantly commit to becoming a better human version of yourself, and never, ever, ever position yourself above someone else, and ever don't ever, like I just saw January pop on here. Never, ever deign yourself so much better than anybody else that you have the intellectual or integrity superiority over someone else to judge their own journey. Never do it. Never do it. Always resist it, because no matter what, you're going to be wrong. No matter what you try to pin on someone else, the world is waking up, y'all. There's so many smart people, right? There's so many smart people that they understand when you are attacking another human being or their character, it is doing nothing but screaming to the other person who you are. Call somebody a liar, that all that is reflecting right back on you that you're the liar. Call somebody a thief, all that's doing is reflecting back onto you that you're the thief. People's actions show more than their words ever will. And someone who is bent on spending time tearing down other people are very broken themselves. And I'll love them as long as that brokenness does not impinge upon or to disparage light, put a disparaging light on somebody like Christopher Kaysen or Tamra or the Kieslings or Emily or anybody that I came to love and know and respect in this world. I'm using impactors because it was a recent experience, right? But at the end of the day, what you say, and this is not in any way, shape, or form a fortune cookie statement. The things that come out of your mouth are a direct reflection of who you are, The things you type, how you reply to people on social media, how you treat the person who's serving you your meal, whoever's taking your ticket as you get on an airplane. It's a direct reflection of who you are. That's a responsibility that we take as adults in Misfit Nation. It's a responsibility that leaves us lonely sometimes because the rest of the world deems it easy to tear down other people, to sit back. And so there's a couple of isms, right? There's a couple of these isms that I really like, right? And you look at this and the two that I associate myself to the most are idealism. Now keep in mind, if you are a believer in idealism, then man, you fight for that idea, right? I believe that there's good parts of all of the isms out there that can combine together to make a Jasonism, right? and the Jasonism, I'm the only one that can apply that particular set of circumstances to for the betterment or for the optimization of that moment in time. Just like there's Tamra-isms, there's Anita-isms, there's David Perez-isms, there's John Duffy-isms that only y'all can have if you're combining your unique Ruben-isms, right? When we're combining our unique experience from the time we drew our very first breath to this moment. And man, I need your isms. Man, we need your isms. Thomas-isms. So if I look at three of them, okay, idealism, and they're supposed to be mutually exclusive, right? Idealism and realism fight directly against each other, right? And realism, there was two guys that I love so much. Like these guys are if you ever get a chance to learn about a couple of really cool guys, Bertrand Russell and G.E. Moore. There's some other guys were in realism, but these two guys, they're to me they're basically intellectual Mike Tyson's. Like, they got in and they fought because idealism was very popular. In other words, that you could create everything in your mind, and it's kind of the woo-woo thing that you see kind of out there these days, right? Where somebody says, it's all created in your mind. You think it enough. The Secret, right? The book, The Secret. And what Bertram and Russell and G.E. Moore did was they went to town to dismantle, to its very fundamental core and nuts and bolts, in idealism. And that's why today people still have a hard time when somebody comes up with woo or yoga or, these transcendental things that you're doing and meditation and all. Like, that is deemed outside the norm, when it used to be for 19 plus almost into the 20th century, where that was a normal thought process. These guys took realism, which, it comes with empirical data. Like, I believe in idealism. I believe that things are created in the mind, which is the next ism, which was kind of a combination of the two. But I believe that we can create things. I don't believe that tabula rasa, right? That's the theory that we have a blank mind when we're born, that we don't bring ideas with us, right? That tabula rasa means that we have a blank slate. I believe along those lines that we come up with a belief and then we go about creating them in the real world, or they just stay in our mind and we argue against or for them based on our own fears. Okay. I don't want to go too far off the beaten track here, but I will tell you that they did that Bertram Russell and Moore, they did a lot of damage to creative advancement because they just felt hell bent on destroying another belief system. And they used every tool in their arsenal to shred it apart. So I respect them on one side and despise them on another, because they took apart a beautiful ism and the beautiful parts of idealism so that they could be right historically, right? So there's good side. That's the good side and the bad side of these two guys. Because even today, like I said, I believe in meditation. I believe that there's a transcendental connection between all human beings. I believe that there's some empirical data for that to be true, which, that we have ways of measuring that these days, right? Scientifically. But a lot of people walk around with skepticism in their mind about those kind of opportunities, those kind of possibilities, because of the work of Russell and Moore and their group. There was other groups of people, but those two guys were the ones that most rapidly fought it out. And there wasn't a Plato, right, or an Aristotle on the other side of the argument, because Plato believed, he was a big time. I just wish he was around to argue on the idealism side. Against these two guys, but there wasn't really an intellectual match for them when they were doing it. Plus they ganged up, right? Like, think about that. Like, just throughout history, when people start to believe what other people believe, now it becomes like a witch hunt. Anybody that believes in idealism is wrong. And they won that argument. So for 100 years, woo-woo has been kind of looked upon with a skeptical eye. That advanced into, I think the best thing that ever came out of Aristotle, in my mind, or one of the best, because he's brilliant. But one of the ideas is of empiricism, and I just want to write down the actual knowledge arises from evidences gathered via the sensory experience. Empiricism emphasizes the role of experiences and evidence. Right now, you're taking realism and you're taking idealism, and you're kind of mashing them together and pulling out a better ism, right? And especially sensory perception in the formation of ideas over the notion of innate ideas. Now, innate ideas just means that there was a school of thought at one time that we were born with ideas. In other words, Steve Jobs was born with the idea for the computer, that we were born with those ideas. I tend to go tabula rasa, which means we have a blank slate where we have an experience, we start to process it, we look to improve it. That's how I believe, right? I don't believe anything's innate. I don't think I came into this world with anything but the ability to love and to hate. That's what I think that I came into the world with. So it's based in ideas or tradition. It's of observation and documentation of patterns and behavior through experimentation. Think about, that's your life. That's your life, right? It should be the tradition of observation and documentation of patterns of your own behavior through experimentation. Experimentation means you're trying something new, right? It means you're trying something new. It means that you're not accepting your current state of being as the end all be all. That you're willing to put yourself out there, that you're willing to try failure, that you're willing to look stupid in front of people, that you're willing to fall down, that you're willing to lose a little bit of money in an opportunity, that you're willing to risk something to better life, that you're willing, just like January did, to be able to take on a 501c3 that she knows nothing about, to be able to ease suffering for other people. That's a risk to advance ourselves via observation and documentation. Documentation is where we forget, is where we lose. Okay. Everybody's heard me talk about my 12-week program, right? The growth, mastering your business G-spot. What that is, it is an observation and documentation tool for the advancement of your ability to use your business to create revenue. That's it. It's an empirical, modern, historical work of art, the G-spot. And when I was going through this and I was doing this study, I've had a hard time sometimes explaining to people what growth, mastering your business G-spot is all about. But that's it. It is an observation and documentation work of art for you to challenge and to try little things, to fail small instead of failing big and going out of business, right? And hitting the business G-spot is staying in business, which 96% of people, 96% of the businesses that exist don't do after a decade. They're out of business, 96% of them. Right? So it's difficult to hit the business G-spot. And what I did was I built the empirical observation and documentation of patterns and behavior through experimentation, work of art. You're welcome. Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and leave the building, clap, go ahead, celebrate, just throw some confetti up in the air. But where in your life, like this is the conversation that I want to have. Where in your life, a lot of us are good at observation, right? We're good at observing what's going on in our life and finding, instead of having documentation and a thought process, what we do is we observe for the purpose and the outcome to judge someone else and find their worst traits so that we feel better about ourselves with no intervention into our own behavior. I hope I'm going to have to go back and catch that one, but because I was piecing that together. But that's the bottom line, right? Is that when people are talking shit about you, it's because they're judging you. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the same hit that you and I get from performance. They're trying to get it out of judgment. Some of this shit is just actually hitting me as we're speaking right now. Okay. That you and I get our high out of performance. And that means that our observation and documentation is against ourselves. If somebody's miserable and talking shit, the only satisfaction that you and I get, think about a runner's mile or a runner's high, or how you feel after a workout, or how you feel when you've taken a test, or you've done something new, or you get an award for something you've been working on for 10 years, or whatever it is, that we get that high out of performance. And the rest of the world that doesn't understand this or isn't engaged in this sort of activity gets their high by judging other people, because that's the only time they're going to feel better about themselves, is in comparison to someone else and how much better off they're doing. Whoo! Holy deep. Man. Like, come on, where's like I'm over here going, holy shit, that was deep. And there's like no hearts going up in the air right now. This is just I'm just shouting out right now because I want some damn hearts. I'm not seeing any, because that shit's deep, right? That shit's deep. We talk about it. Thomas is saying it right there. Comparison kills, right? Our reality is interacting quite often with someone else's, especially in social media. It's interacting with their facade. Most of the shit that you see on Facebook, there's some people that are putting out the real stuff, the good, the bad, I love sharing. I very rarely, those of you that have known me for a while, very rarely am I in a bad mood. Very rarely am I sad about anything. It's not that bad shit doesn't happen to me. It's just that I've chosen to overcome that with joy and appreciation, and seeking out the lessons in the pain, and looking, those of you that had heard my very first podcast, where I learned along the way that my belief system, my original belief and anchored thought that I used to think over and over and over again was, how do I protect myself? Because my adopted father, who I thought my real dad, never did. And I changed that primary question of mine to something like, how can I become a world changer, a powerful world changer that enjoys every breath? And that's how I live my life, y'all. By one basic, like you narrow down, right? It gets over here. We're thinking and we're doing all this stuff to process, so that in the moment we can do something different than what we used to do. Because that's our only hope of getting a different result. Is in that moment. It's just in that one moment where you decide to be kind instead of angry, where you decide to compliment instead of tear down, where you decide to take responsibility instead of blaming someone else, where you decide to love instead of hate, where you decide to combine instead of divide, right? It's in those moments, like Tony always says, it's in your moments of decision where your destiny is shaped. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. That's why we do all this thinking, where we go outside of our comfort zone and then we come back to a moment. And that moment is always an interaction, either with ourselves or with someone else. Right? And Sandy, you are so far away from being stupid, right? Man, this is powerful. There's so many beautiful human beings. I'm just kind of acknowledging who's all here, and the words, and those of you that are typing in things, and and the hundreds and thousands of people that'll see this or hear this later on. I just want to I see you, and here's the thing about Misfit Nation. We see each other, and we take these opportunities. It's in those moments, right? Like Patrick Dickerson has his own life, and yet we come together in moments where I feel most accepted, I feel most lifted up, I feel most loved, I feel most understood in the Misfit Nation that we've all created together. And I look at the names, and the Tamras and the Christophers and the Robert Brookers and the Rayann's and the people that are all here, and the pain that I've witnessed you all go through, and the absolute heroes you are in my in my life, and the examples that you set for other people. And when I go back to my old days, when I want to pick up baseball bats, it's because of y'all. When somebody's attacking you guys, or your integrity, or the way that you play this world, this life this game called life, right? That's when old school Jason comes out. That's when that red gorilla shows up. Because man, you mean a lot to me. And man, you mean a lot to each other. I watch, I can see you all. Right? I can see you all. I watch, I listen. You guys see me popping into your lives and watching. And the standards that you hold each other to. Exactly, Brooke. Hold everything in the energy of love. And that's not weak. It's strong. Takes a lot of effort. Takes a lot of energy to love. Easy to hate. It's easy. So I wanted to wrap it up, like, in empirical data, right? It is my challenge for this week. My challenge for y'all this week is if you don't have some sort of a capture mechanism for gathering observation and documentation of your patterns and behaviors, buy one, right? I mean, the G spot, had so many people take the system that I built, this 12-week program, and apply it to their health, apply it to their relationships, apply it to other things other than making money. It might be that system that you're looking for that can capture all of your activities, and you can shift and calculate and measure your way forward. So, it's always out there for you guys. It's, somebody can put the link in here. 90% of the people that are here are G-Spot people that have taken the course or are currently in the course. Could talk to them about whether you need to do it or not. But that is one of my missions, is to get that observation and documentation tool in the hands of every single human being that, like me, didn't have an education, dropped out of high school, in and out of jail, bad guidance, bad leadership, a horrible father figure that ended up in prison, those kind of things. It's the thing I'm most proud of. I want everybody to have it. Sandy said that, and by the way, you can have week 1, since Sandy's going to go ahead and do it. I think we might have changed the number, Sandy, but try it if you want to do it. This is week 1 of the 12-week program. If you want week 1 and a couple of other videos and stuff like that, you can text the word strategy to 444-999, or you can just go to the website, antonj.com/growth, and just get started. I haven't had anyone tell me that they were sorry that they did it. And the ones who have done it multiple times are the ones that are getting the biggest results, because it's an evergreen product. You don't ever need another business program. It's a capture place where you can apply marketing, you can apply finance, you can apply all of it, but you've got the infrastructure there to build it. But that's enough sales for the night. But is it really sales if you genuinely need that tool? I don't think so. So think about the idea of tabula rasa, right? It's a blank slate. That means that all of the things that have caused you pain, you can wipe them away as well, right? You can wipe them away and start over. You can take your idea, you can create it. You just have to have feedback. You have to understand that people not believing in you is going to be part of the process. You have to also understand that failure is going to be part of the process. If you're wanting to improve or save your marriage, if you're wanting to improve your health, if you're wanting to make more money, if you're wanting to get into the 501c3 world, it's just that idea that this is your greatest weapon. And so many of us have a pea shooter where we've got a rail gun. I think it was Ruben that said a rail gun. When you've got a rail gun, you're hard to beat. And it's just about executing that on that more and more each day. Just trying something small each and every day, adding it to your tool belt, something that helps you move forward in a different way and extending different behaviors. Now, Model the behaviors of people that are where you want to be. Throughout history, you can go to people that are dead, that lived centuries ago. You can go to people that are alive. You can go to people that you can go to yourself in the future and have conversations with your future self. It's all up to you. And so again, I want to end this episode the same way that I always begin it. And it's 100% in gratitude, right? It's just, I'm so grateful for y'all. You guys come here, you hang out with me for an hour on a Monday night. There's so many of you. You share it out. The things are I think that we're going to hit our first 70,000 download episode in the next 30 days or so. That's my estimation. And it's all because of you. It's all because of y'all. Thank you for sharing the show. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for the feedback that you give me. Thank you for the challenges that you put in front of me. Thank you more than anything. Thank you for, in front of the world, exposing yourself to the possibility of failure. Thank you for that. For the more than anything that we do here in Misfit Nation, thank you for the guts to expose yourself to the possibility of failure. I love y'all. Have an amazing Monday. We'll be back here again, just like clockwork, on next Monday. Those of you crazies that are getting up with me in the morning, tomorrow is going to be day 47 of up at 4, out at 5, getting a workout on. Starting to pay off, starting to pay off. Whenever I peel those clothes off in front of the mirror these days, I'm seeing not just one ab, I'm seeing 2 and 3. So I'm having a good time. And again, I'm proud of y'all. I look forward to seeing you, those of you that follow me, tomorrow morning, and those of you that come back on Mondays. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for growing the audience. I think we're making a dent, y'all. That's all we can do is try to do our best to make a dent in the universe. I love you. I respect you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I always mess up that statement, but I just love saying it. Love y'all. Peace.